The Beast of Valeris. The grand crystal amphitheater of Valeris shimmered with refracted light. Thousands of facets, carved by generations of Xerathi hands, bent the twin suns into a kaleidoscope that blinded and awed all who entered. Today, the seats were filled not only with the crystalline people of the planet, but with off-world delegations from across the sector. It was a rare occasion, the kind that drew both reverence and political curiosity. At the center of the amphitheater lay the Beast of Valeris. Chains thicker than a man's torso bound it to obsidian pylons, glowing with suppression fields that hissed whenever the creature moved. Its scales bore scars, both old and fresh. Its eyes, luminescent amber, swept the hall not with fury, as the stories claimed, but with exhaustion. Each breath rattled through its chest, a sound too deep to be called a growl, too weary to be called a roar. For the Xerathi, this was a sacred day. Once every century, they captured and sacrificed a beast such as this, claiming that its destruction renewed their world's harmony. Without the ritual, they insisted, chaos would spill into their society, bringing ruin. Tradition demanded blood. The High Chancellor, a towering figure whose body refracted light like a living prism, raised his arms. Behold the curse of instinct, of savagery, of all that is untamed. For the peace of Valeris, it must perish. The amphitheater hummed with agreement. Delegates from avian scholars to reptilian merchants nodded in solemn approval. Most species in the galaxy knew the wisdom of the Xerathi. Survival was built on control, on eliminating threats before they could grow. In the third row, one delegate did not nod. Eli Harper shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He was human, shorter, softer, and far less impressive than the crystalline beings around him. His colleagues back home had begged to know why he joined this diplomatic envoy. He wasn't a soldier, nor a diplomat. He was an agricultural scientist, fascinated by alien ecosystems. When he'd heard the Xerathi kept a chaos beast, he'd begged for a place on the mission. Curiosity had always been his vice. Now, staring at the chained creature, he felt something twist in his chest. The beast did not rage as the legends said it would. It did not thrash against its bonds or spit venom at its captors. Instead, it looked hungry. Its head sagged as though too heavy for its neck. When it licked its lips, Eli swore the tongue moved not in menace but in thirst. The Chancellor signaled, and guards approached with plasma spears. "The sacrifice shall begin," he declared. Eli rose without thinking. "Wait." Every crystalline head turned, facets gleaming like knives. The human flushed but pressed on. "It's starving." A ripple of confusion spread through the amphitheater. No one interrupted a ritual, least of all an alien. "Starving," the Chancellor repeated, his voice crystalline, sharp. Eli stepped forward, heart hammering. He dug into his satchel and pulled out a sealed ration pack, simple dried protein bars he always carried. Slowly, cautiously, he approached the chained beast. Guards leveled their spears at him, shouting warnings, but Eli ignored them. The beast's eyes fixed on him. For one frozen moment, the amphitheater seemed to hold its breath. Eli tore open the packet and held it out. "Hey, food." The creature lowered its head, nostrils flaring. The chains clinked as it strained toward the scent. Then, with a gentleness no one had imagined, it took the bar from Eli's hand. Its teeth, each longer than his arm, barely brushed his fingers. It chewed slowly, eyes half-lidded with relief. The silence in the amphitheater broke into a wave of gasps. Eli stroked its snout. The skin was rough, scarred, but warm. The beast leaned into his touch, exhaling a rumble that vibrated through his chest. He realized it wasn't a growl. It was closer to a purr. The Chancellor's crystalline form flickered with agitation. "Blasphemy," he hissed. "The beast deceives. It seduces with false calm. It must die." But Eli didn't step away. He looked up at the assembly, his voice steady now. "It's not a monster. You've starved it, chained it, treated it like a curse. But all I see is a creature that wants kindness." The beast nudged his hand again, as if to agree. And in that instant, the centuries-old certainty of the Xerathi began to crack. The human way. The council chamber of Valeris was nothing like the amphitheater. Where the execution grounds were brilliant and public, the chamber was cold, narrow, and silent, designed to swallow sound rather than amplify it. Crystal walls shimmered faintly with restrained energy, reflecting the anxious stares of the gathered delegates. At the center, bound once more by suppression fields, lay the beast. Its head rested on the ground, eyes half-lidded. Chains pressed into raw wounds along its limbs. It made no sound, but the weight of its presence filled the chamber. The High Chancellor rose, his crystalline form refracting light into sharp angles. The ritual was interrupted, he said, his voice edged like broken glass. The human endangered all present by consorting with the beast. He must answer for this violation. Dozens of voices murmured in agreement. To most, it was simple. Traditions existed to be obeyed, not questioned. Eli Harper stood alone before them, his shoulders square though his palms sweated. He had not slept. Images of the creature's exhausted eyes haunted him. I didn't endanger anyone, he said, voice firmer than he expected. I fed a starving animal. That's all. Gasps, like shards of crystal striking the floor. To call the beast an animal, stripping it of its mythical terror, was blasphemy. One delegate, a feathered scholar with wings folded tight, leaned forward. Human, do you not fear what it might do if unbound? It is a predator, born of chaos. Its kind devoured entire colonies in ancient times. Eli met his gaze. Predators aren't evil. They are hungry, desperate. You've taken that desperation and built a myth around it. He gestured at the chained creature. Look at it. Do you see a demon? Or do you see something beaten, broken, waiting for the end? The chamber fell into uneasy silence. Even the beast seemed to listen, its amber eyes locked on Eli. The Chancellor shattered the quiet. Enough. You dare insult centuries of wisdom? This creature must die. Our people's survival demands it. Eli's fists clenched. He had never been a fighter, but he knew injustice when it stared him down. Or maybe your people's survival demands you keep killing what you don't understand. He drew a breath, softening his tone. Where I come from, we learned something important. Compassion is not weakness. Sometimes, it's the only thing that keeps you alive. The delegates stirred. The word, compassion, was not one the Xerathi used often. For them, logic and order were survival's foundations. The idea that mercy could hold power unsettled them. That evening, Eli returned to the beast holding pen under heavy guard. The crystalline soldiers glared at him, muttering about reckless humans. Still, they allowed him near the bars. The creature lifted its head as he approached, a low rumble vibrating through its chest. Eli crouched, sliding another protein bar through the barrier. The beast accepted it carefully, as though aware of its own terrifying size. You're not what they think you are, Eli murmured. You're just tired, aren't you? The beast exhaled, warm air washing over him. For a moment, Eli swore the creature understood. Its massive head lowered, pressing against the bars. Tentatively, Eli reached through and brushed his fingers along its rough skin. The beast's eyes closed, the sound of its rumble softening. From the shadows, a voice hissed. You mock us with your weakness. Eli turned. The Chancellor stood there, flanked by council guards. His body glowed with fractured light, sharp and unyielding. You would turn a holy trial into a petting ground. You shame yourself and your species. I don't care about pride, Eli shot back. I care about truth. And the truth is this isn't a monster. It's alive. It feels pain. It can trust. The Chancellor's facets flickered. Trust. Eli nodded toward the beast. Watch. He unlatched the outer gate, a reckless, dangerous act. Guards shouted, weapons raised. Eli stepped inside. The beast shifted, chains rattling, but did not lunge. Instead, it lowered itself, curling protectively around him. Its bulk shielded him from every angle, a living fortress. The guards froze. Even the Chancellor faltered. Eli pressed his hand against the beast's snout, his voice low but carrying. Trust, he repeated. For the first time in centuries, the indomitable certainty of the Xerathi ritual cracked. Not broken, but shaken. That night, word spread across Valeris and beyond. Humans, the species known for recklessness in battle, had shown something stranger than violence. They had befriended the beast of chaos. And for some, the idea was more terrifying than the creature itself. Breaking chains. The arena was carved into the living crystal of Valeris, vast enough to hold 1,000 soldiers and still echo with emptiness. It was not a place of sport but of judgment, where tradition tested strength and fate. Today, it would decide whether the beast lived or whether Eli Harper's defiance ended in blood. The stands filled with delegates and citizens, their facets glittering in the twin suns. Murmurs rippled like static through the crowd. Some whispered curiosity, others contempt. At the arena's heart, suppression chains glowed faintly against the beast's massive frame. Branta, that was the name Eli had given it, shifted uneasily, the chains biting deeper into its hide. Eli stood alone in the sand. His colleagues had begged him not to take part in this test of truth, but he refused to abandon Branta. The council's decree was clear. The beast would be released, and its behavior would decide its fate. If it attacked, it would be executed immediately. If it did not, perhaps the council would reconsider. The High Chancellor's voice rang sharp across the arena. Let all witness. The human claims compassion tames chaos. Today, we test his heresy. Release the chains. The suppression fields dimmed. Metal groaned. With a snap like thunder, the chains fell away. Branta surged to its feet, muscles rippling beneath scarred scales. A collective gasp swept the stands. Guards encircled the arena with plasma spears, their fingers twitching over triggers. The beast roared, not a sound of hunger, but of rage and fear. Its tail swept across the ground, gouging trenches in the sand. The soldiers advanced, weapons raised. Eli stepped forward, hands raised. Stop! Don't threaten it! But the guards ignored him. Their every movement screamed hostility, and Branta's amber eyes burned with panic. The beast crouched, ready to strike. Eli ran into its shadow, his body a fragile speck against its mass. Branta, he whispered, reaching for its muzzle. It's all right. I'm here. The beast's chest heaved. For a heartbeat, the crowd expected carnage. Then, slowly, Branta lowered its head. Its breath washed over Eli, hot and steady. The human laid his palm against its snout. The roar subsided into a deep rumble. Instead of lunging at the guards, Branta curled its massive body protectively around him. The arena erupted in disbelief. One guard, trembling, broke ranks and thrust his spear. Eli spun, shouting, "No!" The weapon struck Branta's flank, hissing against its hide. The beast bellowed, muscles coiling. Yet instead of tearing the guard apart, it merely swung its tail, knocking the soldier sprawling without killing him. The restraint was more shocking than any display of violence. Eli's voice rang out, louder than he thought possible. Do you see? It doesn't want blood. It wants trust. You've feared it for centuries, but fear is not the truth. He stroked Branta's head, the beast leaning into his touch. This is the truth. The council erupted in argument, voices clashing like shattering glass. Some demanded the ritual continue, claiming the display proved only that humans could manipulate abominations. Others, fewer, but louder than before, insisted what they'd seen could not be ignored. The Chancellor's facets flickered with fury. A trick, he declared. A fragile illusion. This beast will reveal its true nature in time. We will not be deceived. Eli glared at him. It already revealed its nature, and it's kinder than yours. That night, the council retired in bitter division. Guards escorted Eli and Branta back to the holding pen, where the beast settled heavily against the walls. Eli collapsed beside it, exhaustion dragging at his bones. Sleep eluded him. Sometime after midnight, he heard movement, the faint scrape of crystal on stone. Shadows detached from the walls, assassins, cloaked in refracting light. They carried blades designed to bypass suppression fields. Their target was clay. Eli leapt to his feet. No! He grabbed a fallen spear, though he barely knew how to hold it. The assassins advanced, swift and silent. Chains clinked as Branta stirred. One assassin lunged at Eli. A flash of amber and scale cut the strike short. Branta surged forward, body colliding with the intruder. With terrifying strength, it shielded Eli beneath its chest, fangs bared, but it did not kill. Instead, it drove the assassins back, sweeping them aside with calculated force. When the last intruder fled, Eli sank against the beast's side, shaking. Branta bent its massive head low, a low rumble vibrating through its chest. Not anger, not hunger, protection. Word of the attack spread faster than the assassins themselves. By dawn, the galaxy whispered a new story. Not only had a human calmed the beast, but the beast had saved a human's life. And for many, that was harder to dismiss than ritual or tradition. The gentle victory. The council chamber of Valeris pulsed with tension. Light refracted off its crystalline walls, fractured and sharp, as if even the building reflected the division within. Every delegate seat was filled. Representatives from half the sector had come to witness the verdict. The fate of the so-called beast of chaos and of the human who had dared to defy tradition. At the chamber's center, Branta lay coiled, chains fastened loosely around its limbs. Not suppression, this time, mere formality. The beast's amber eyes followed Eli Harper as he stepped forward. The High Chancellor's body glimmered like a jagged prism, his voice cutting through the hush. The evidence is clear. The beast remains dangerous. The human's influence has blinded judgment. We must complete the sacrifice, lest our people fall to ruin. A wave of agreement swept the hall. Yet for the first time, there was hesitation, fractures in what had always been unquestioned unity. Eli's heart pounded, but he forced his voice steady. You've seen the truth. You watched it trust me in the arena. You saw it spare the god who struck it. And last night, it saved me from assassins you pretend don't exist. His gaze swept the chamber, locking on the delegates. Tell me, what kind of monster protects instead of destroys? Murmurs rippled. Some shifted uneasily, their facets dimming. Others hissed with outrage. The Chancellor's form brightened, flaring like cut glass in a sunbeam. You sentimental fool. It will turn on you. Chaos cannot be chained. That is why it must die. Eli stepped closer to Branta, placing a hand against the beast's scarred snout. Branta lowered its head until Eli stood in the shadow of its jaw. The human's voice softened but carried with unmistakable conviction. Maybe you're right. Maybe I can't chain chaos. But I don't need to. I can care for it. I can feed it. I can let it trust me. That's what you've never tried, because you've been too busy fearing it. The hall went utterly still. Eli straightened, his words sharpening like steel. Where I come from, we'll learn that strength isn't just measured in the enemies you kill. It's in the friends you make of those enemies. If survival means killing everything you don't understand, then you'll spend eternity alone, sharpening blades against shadows. Gasps rang through the chamber. Even the delegates who despised humans could not deny the force of his words. The Chancellor raised a crystalline arm, trembling with fury. Enough, guards! But before the order could be finished, a young soldier in polished crystal armor stepped forward. Hands trembling, he raised his weapon toward Branta. Fear, not malice, drove him. The chamber watched in breathless horror as the spear's tip crackled with energy. Branta's amber eyes fixed on the soldier. The beast could have ended him with a flick of its claw. Instead, it shifted, blocking Eli with its body. Then, with deliberate care, it reached out one talon paw and pushed the weapon aside. No blood spilled. No fury followed. Only restraint. Only mercy. The soldier fell to his knees, shaking. A collective shiver ran through the chamber. What no speech could prove, Branta had just shown them. Eli's voice, quiet but steady, sealed it. Tell me now, is this a monster, or is it something you were too afraid to understand? The chamber erupted in argument, but this time, the balance had shifted. When the vote was called, the majority, narrow but undeniable, chose to break the ritual. For the first time in centuries, the beast of Valeris would live. The Chancellor dimmed, his light fractured and fading. His voice cracked like brittle glass. You doom us all. He turned and stalked from the chamber, leaving silence in his wake. Eli pressed his forehead against Branta's snout, relief flooding through him. The beast rumbled, a sound that vibrated like distant thunder yet carried only warmth. Around them, delegates stared, not with fear, but with something dangerously close to wonder. Days later, as Eli prepared to leave Valeris, Branta followed. No chain, no field, no ritual could hold it now. It chose to walk beside him, its bulk casting a shadow across the landing bay. Other delegates whispered as they watched the pair ascend the human shuttle. The whispers spread across the stars, reshaping the galaxy's view of humanity. Humans, they said, they can make friends with monsters. Inside the shuttle, Branta settled heavily onto the floor, amber eyes closing as Eli leaned against its side. For the first time in weeks, he allowed himself a smile. Not a monster, he whispered. Just misunderstood. Branta rumbled in agreement. And so the galaxy's oldest fear became humanity's newest ally, born not of chains or blood, but of food, trust, and the simplest strength of all, compassion.